A Necessary Evil, aka NED. Chapter 1. A dark and stormy night. No, really. Nothing could be heard above the howl of the wind and the thrashing of palm leaves as they struck the side of the house, coupled with the roar of crackling thunder as a Category 3 hurricane beat down on the roof. Nothing, of course, except for the string of expletives from the mouth of the owner of the house, Jillie Dodgson. Jillie tripped over her ginger, short-haired cat Rufus, letting out a wail as her pinky toe smooshed against the end table in the living room. Flippity-gibbet! She leaned over to rub her sore toe. Her previous discourse was saltier than flippity-gibbet, but they had cautioned her about her cussing in the workplace, ever since a children's daycare center had been added to their office building. Jillie fumbled in the dark until she found the drawer handle of the end table, pulling it open with such force that its contents scattered onto the floor, the drawer landing corner side down, right on top of her yet uninjured right foot. She let out a few more expletives. "You might have thought to keep the flashlight bedside, knowing a hurricane was coming," a male voice answered calmly, not without a hint of attitude. Jillie's face grew hot as her heart leapt into her throat. "Who said that?" she yelled, kneeling on the floor, ignoring the set of keys, pens, and other objects that were now piercing her kneecaps as she frantically searched for a flashlight. "Who the hell said that?" Jillie switched the flashlight on, but it only flickered before dying out. She hit it against her palm, and it came back to life. She pointed it in the voice's direction. There in front of her, sitting on the armrest of her couch, with his long feet resting on the cushion and his knees pulled up to his chest, was a tall, thin, male-like creature, dressed all in the ugliest shade of burnt orange as she had ever seen. His face was a pasty, chalk-like white, his hair nothing more than a short but thick mat of blue-black fur with 2 gray horns protruding on each side of his head. His chin was chiseled to a near point, with large lips the shade of blood. The oddest feature of all, however, were his eyes. Unlike the rest of his appearance, they were a deep puppy dog brown. They seemed almost kind. Jillie froze in fear as her feet were now glued to the floor, her arms restrained by a seemingly invisible force. The demon-like creature's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait a moment," he whispered. "You can see me?" When Jillie could finally speak, she uttered, "You have horns." She touched the side of her cropped brown hair with the fingertips of the free hand that was not shakily holding the flashlight. "I most certainly do not," the creature answered, offended. Then, when witnessing her lean back as if under attack, he softened his voice again, touching one horn on his head. He said, pouting a little, "I'll have you know these happen to be my ears." "What are you?" Jillie stammered. "And what are you doing in my house?" He let out a sigh before producing a small black business card with white lettering, holding it at arm's length and beckoning her to take it. Jillie crept in and reached a tentative arm out, her thumb and forefinger pinching it cautiously before retreating. The creature rolled his eyes and waited while she read the card. "A necessary evil, demon." Jillie looked up confused. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "Perhaps it would be best if you sat down," he suggested, snapping his fingers. The light over the couch lit up, while the rest of the house remained dark. She clenched the flashlight, as if she might need to use it as a weapon, realizing she now had a sticky note stuck to her kneecap, and her feet were still bare. She was wearing a fluffy pink and white nightgown, and appearing as the polar opposite of the demon in her home, who was decidedly less fluffy. Plus, there was nothing intimidating about her. "I think I'll stand," she muttered. "Suit yourself," he answered. "Mind if I make myself a drink, though?" He sauntered over to the golden globe with a map of the world on it. Only it was a world map from some 500 years ago. He found the lever on the side of it, swinging it open to reveal a minibar. The demon poured himself a whiskey. Jillie had wondered why her liquor reserves seemed lower than they should be, and assumed her now ex had pilfered some on his way out the door. It would have been just like him to fill up empty flasks to make sure he had his fair share in the breakup. Just then, a drop of water fell from the ceiling, plopping into the demon's glass with a plunk. He smiled. "Seriously?" She cursed her luck before remembering that there was a strange creature still in her home. "And what is this supposed to be?" She held up the card he'd just given her. "I told you," he said. "It's my business card." She read it aloud. "A necessary evil, comma, demon." "You know, you don't need to read the comma out loud," he offered. "Just a necessary evil, demon should suffice." "What does that even mean?" she demanded, glancing up at the ceiling where a few more drops of water fell. "Most cards give someone's name and occupation. Is your name necessary evil and your occupation demon?" He took a sip of whiskey with a look of annoyance. Finally, he answered, "I'll have you know that demon is what I am, not my occupation. Jeez. And a necessary evil is the service I provide." "That seems silly." Jillie relaxed her shoulders a little. She sat tentatively on the edge of the couch. "That would be like me writing lead content writer, comma, human." "Again," he reminded her, "I don't think you need to say the comma part." "I shouldn't have to say the human part either," she pointed out. "Not like there would be some confusion." "Ha!" the demon laughed. "That's what you think. You'd be surprised how many demons are passing themselves off as humans these days. And don't get me started on shapeshifters posing as household pets." He eyed Rufus suspiciously. "My cat is not a shapeshifter." Jillie couldn't believe she had to explain that. The demon suddenly got down on all fours. Rufus chirped a little, and then met the demon nose to nose. "No, you're right," he agreed, standing up. "Cats can see me, shapeshifters cannot." He took another sip of whiskey. "Come to think of it, neither can humans. How in the world is it that you can see me? Are you not human?" "Of course I'm human," Jillie answered crankily. After all, it was 2:00 in the morning, and while the storm had since died down, the power, except for the light above her couch, was still out, and it seemed she had a leaky roof to contend with. She was tired and becoming increasingly agitated. "What else would I be... Sorry, do you actually have a name?" No, I'm just a necessary evil, got it. But for simplicity's sake, why don't I just call you..." She thought a moment. "Ned." "Ned?" The demon was quizzical. "Yes, an acronym for necessary evil, comma, demon. NED." "Why not Ned, then?" "Because the A is an article." "So?" "Fine, I'll call you a Ned." No, I think I like Ned better." "Now that we've gotten that out of the way, want to explain why it is you are here, Ned?"
"Ah, well, it's quite simple."
Ned the demon struck a long-nailed finger into his near-empty beverage and stirred the slushy ice around before finishing his drink.
"As a necessary evil, my job is to provide, shall we say, certain impediments for personal growth purposes."
Jillie narrowed her eyes suspiciously as a drop of rainwater landed on her nose. "What kind of impediments, exactly?" Ned cleared his throat and pointed to the ceiling. "The hurricane? You caused the hurricane?"
"Don't be ridiculous. I would never do anything so vicious. I was talking about the power outage and the leaky roof."
"Why would you do that to me?" Jillie whined.
"Well, I didn't do anything per se," he explained. "I just didn't exactly prevent them from happening."
"So you can fix them for me?"
"No, can't do that either."
"Then what are you here for?" Jillie demanded.
"As I was saying, I am called in as a secret advisor of sorts. I allow certain things to happen, cause minor inconveniences, and supervise the project from start to finish until the subject has been successful in overcoming said obstacles."
"Am I supposed to be the project in this scenario?" She narrowed her eyes angrily.
No, don't be silly. He paused for dramatic effect. You're clearly the subject. The project is everything I'm doing to help you. Help me? Jillie's voice took on a high-pitched trill. How does this help me? Well, I can't tell you that. In fact, you're not even supposed to know I'm here. He mulled over this for several moments. That's a quandary for sure. Point is, it's all for your own good. Think of it as an exercise in becoming a better person. A better... Jillie plopped the flashlight on the end table and stood, crossing her arms defiantly. I fail to see how a leaky roof and being without power while my groceries rot in the refrigerator makes me a better person. And furthermore, what makes you think I want to be a better person? Maybe I'm quite content being a mediocre person. You're upset. Ned held up his hands. I can see that. Perhaps you should get some rest and we can discuss it later. I want you out of here, she pointed to the door. Well, I'm afraid that won't be possible. Why not? She demanded. I go where you go, so I can only leave when you do. I'll call the police and have them remove you from the premises. Be my guest, he pointed to her cell phone. Better yet, since you have no cell phone reception. Ned held up a hand to the ear that looked like a horn. He smiled and nodded at the sudden knock at the front door. Jillie wasted no time. She bounded for the door, a flutter of ruffled pink and white encircling her calves as her nightgown seemed to struggle to keep up with her. She flung open the door. There stood a policewoman, obviously soggy from the rain. Sorry to bother you at this hour of the morning, ma'am, she began, but we received a frantic call about a lost cat in the storm. As if on cue, a suspiciously soggy Rufus purred at Jillie's feet. She snatched him up, tucking him under one arm. Thank you, officer, but I have a larger problem. Him! She pointed at Ned, now standing behind her, resting one elbow on her kitchen counter as he leaned in. Ned waved at the woman, smiling pleasantly. I'm sorry, who? The officer looked over Jillie's shoulder, confused. You mean you can't see that demon standing at the counter with horns? Jillie moved out of the way. Is this some sort of joke, ma'am? Because if it is... No, Jillie relented, snarling angrily at Ned. Sorry, officer, I'm on a new prescription sleep medication. Must have been lucid dreaming. I'm all right now, she explained. Well, you might want to check in with your doctor to adjust the dosage. In the meantime, monitor your cat and try shutting off your cell phone when you go to bed. The officer turned to leave. Come to think of it, she paused. Power's been out all over town. No cell phone reception either. How did you manage to phone and... Why is there a light on in your living room? Ned snapped his fingers and several street lamps lit up, along with the power in several houses in the neighborhood. Close call, he thought to himself. Well, never mind. It seems everyone is getting power back. You just try to get some rest, ma'am. I will, officer, thank you. Jillie closed the door, setting Rufus, now amazingly dry again, on the floor. Rufus sauntered over to Ned and rubbed against his foot. Traitor, Jillie hissed. Rufus flicked a tail at her as if to say, Flibbity-gibbet. Activity. From what you've read of a necessary evil so far, consider what inconveniences you have experienced recently in life. Start with something minor. In what way did they end up working out for your advantage? Or, what were the lesson or lessons gained from them? Bonus activity. If you had to imagine your own Ned, what would they look like? Sketch or describe your version of an annoying Ned.